Hey guys, it's Zach back with another review, this time of the Nearstream VM20 4K streaming webcam. This comes from the same brand that brought you the AM30 microphone review previously. Very solid plug-and-play USB microphone solution, and this time they've decided to hook me up with this camera to integrate into my setup, which I'm very grateful for, having only used my iPhone up to this point. We'll do some comparisons, talk about the main pros and cons that I've found with this camera, and then try to decide if it's for you. It does come in with a pretty hefty price tag. Let's check that out. It retails for $300, typically comes in about $270 on both Amazon and their website, currently with a 10% off code right now. They offer other accessories for it, like the camera stand I was going to look at in this video, but I ended up not getting that, so not really a big deal. They also have a tripod camera stand of much higher quality, and this dual arm desk mount, which I'm actually pretty interested in based on how I do my short videos. Some of the main features though are 4K video up to 30 FPS and up to 40x hybrid zoom. It also has 10 times optical and 4 times digital zoom. I found this to be much more accurate than zooming on both my iPhone and the webcam, which I'll show here in a bit. The camera does not have its own battery. It doesn't need to be plugged in. It does have support for using multiple VM20s across a single setup for a bunch of different angles all at once. It also comes with a pretty cool remote, which I found very nice, as well as 360 AI noise canceling with these microphones you'll find here on the top. But that's about it for the product overview. You can see here right off the bat, the lens on this much larger than your standard cheap webcam, and you would hope so given the size of the camera. It's pretty large, but not too heavy. As you can see, compared to the size of my hand, it's about the same overall size here. Connection wise, again, I've been using the USB into my PC for 4K at 30 FPS. Also has a network connection. You can control this remotely over a network web interface should you want to do a setup like that. And you can also plug in via HDMI. There's a 3.5mm input here should you want to have audio in with your microphone. And then if you're having a different setup beside the USB-C to your PC here, you can then also power that with USB-C separately in this top connection. This here on the top is the microphone array. 8 different inputs here. So you pick up sound in a 360-degree radius, and also has AI noise cancellation features to help block out that background noise should you use the microphone on this. I have stuck to the dedicated microphone you see here, as I do find it to be much higher quality, but in a pinch or certain situations, I think this microphone will be fine, and I'll do a sound test here in a little bit. Beside that, the main mounting mechanism here is the same connection you would use to put any microphone on any like boom arm, for example. So I have like an arm that I have over my desk here, like I'll have my phone sort of point down for like if I'm doing a short, for example. I can screw them out right off this normal stand, screw this camera right on there, and then it works flawlessly. But with that being said, let's take a quick look at how I've used this thus far. What I'm actually gonna do is reference some episodes of the Mousecast podcast that I co-host. So for example, this is an older episode of the Mousecast podcast. As you can see, I typically have like a background on because sometimes this room is a mess because of my kids. And you can see the image quality here isn't like the highest. This is with the iPhone 14 Pro. And then with the background, you can see it sort of blurs in with my head, this like sort of like green screen effect here. Even though there's no green screen, it's just like a built-in Discord feature, but it's not the clearest. I sort of like get blurred around the edges. You lose part of my head there if I turn. Even holding up objects here, you would lose parts of the object because the camera is just not quite as detailed and focused on me and the items as the VM20 is. Where's the mouse pad? Oh, there it is. There's the Cataclysm from 10x. Good pad. Anyway, recently, I've swapped to using the VM20, and you can see right away, I just have a much clearer picture of myself, and the blur on the background is almost perfect. There's no parts of me that are missing. There is full detail on my entire person here. No issues at all with the background sort of losing and blurring around my face. The mouse here is completely clear. Don't lose any of the edges on that detail either, so I can show off viewers items that I have in complete detail. And I think overall, you can see it's a perfect camera for this situation. This is the main way that I've used the camera thus far for the duration of Mousecast podcasts, as well as for some of my intros, because I often hold up mice in the intros to my YouTube videos. But with that, let's hook this thing up again live and talk about a few different features. So real quick, this is still my iPhone, and this is the ATK A9 Ultimate as the sort of subject here. You can see we're focused directly on the mouse. There's a lot of blur applied here in the background automatically. A lot of sort of like post-processing that happens to sort of brighten up certain areas. The mouse is actually dark red in person, but it's like a lighter, brighter orange almost. It's like an orangish red here on the screen with the iPhone's like automatic built-in processing. And that's a huge thing I've found with this. iPhone does a lot of work from the raw image you get, whereas you're getting a higher quality image theoretically on the Nearstream camera, but it's basically raw and it's much more dependent on lighting. So for example, if I turn the lights off here on my desk, this is the raw image with my iPhone, and if I switch to the Nearstream, as you can see, it looks very low quality here, but that's because you need a good lighting setup or a higher quality sort of DSLR-esque camera. If I flip those lights back on, as you can see, this image is much more raw and natural. Not a lot of post-processing. The desk looks more like the actual color it is. It's a little bit balanced to like a blue-green, and that's how I have it set for my Mousecast podcast for a reason. But this is a much more accurate representation of the color red of the mouse. So I've now applied like one more backlight, and you can see a lot brighter in the room. Very much illuminates the mouse. It still looks a bit pixelated, but that's because I'm very close to this camera. And that is one more issue that I ran into with my normal sort of like angle shot. Basically, this is the camera's default zoom. You can see I have the controller here. I'm trying to zoom out. This is as far out as you can possibly zoom. So like I'm just too close to the image right here. So like I've not integrated this for my main camera shot for reviews. So I've sort of stuck to this look, which as you can see, the lighting difference here here, completely shockingly different. This is like a darker red in person, but this shot here on my iPhone, because there's so much light going on in the background, makes it look like more of an orangish red. So the conclusion here basically is, if you want like just an easy, low effort, software's gonna fix a lot of your problems, so you have a bad lighting setup sort of solution, you want to something more like an iPhone probably. But if you have a very good lighting setup, if you want to look very professional, very focused, the highest quality 4K shot, then the VM20 does a very good job in that situation. I'm sort of holding the camera here to experiment with different things, but as you can see, the shot of this mouse pad here, for example, the Naomi from Ponage, very detailed, very high quality. Hello. Even coming from a position up here where I'm closer to the light source, it seems to sort of clear up that image a little bit. And then doing something like testing the zoom functionality, you can go crazy far zoomed in here. I've accidentally auto zoom on my face a couple of times while doing mouse cast, but look at this. As we zoom in very far here, we're barely sacrificing any quality at all. Very impressive zooming. I apologize for the shake here. I've sort of had to improvise with my setup, but again, not something I can do very effectively on my iPhone. A very limited range of zoom and a very powerful feature of the VM20 here. We'll take this opportunity to also talk about the controller here. This is the auto zoom feature that I was using. You have up to 3 different presets here of a bunch of different settings. I'll show you in the software here, as well as switching between up to 5 different devices, all synced up. Turn the camera off, mute the mic, lock it. This also changes the way the camera is pointing. As you can see here, I can zoom in, zoom out, look up, look down. The autofocus zoom just sort of kicked in there, but I can use this feature here to zoom right back out. And the controller honestly has been a very nice thing to have when I'm sort of shooting from different angles and want to get a better look without having to mess with any software. I guess like on my phone sometimes it'll be mounted for a short and I have to like go around the mount and like try and pinch, and it's just a huge pain in the butt. Not a problem here with this controller. We can do a quick switch over to the Nearstream mic. So here I am talking about maybe 18 inches to 2 feet away from the 8-array microphone on the Nearstream VM20. The AI noise cancellation is turned on, and I will do some tapping here on my desk to see how it does with background noise. It is also positioned somewhat close to my desktop PC, but at rest I don't see anything coming through, so I think it might do a very good job of blocking out the fans. Here's my voice quality on the Nearstream mic, and we'll do a quick swap back over to my AT2035. As you can see, a much higher quality sound, but the mic is much closer to my face, and obviously it is a fully featured standalone $150 studio level microphone, so it makes sense there's a difference. I think obviously if you're doing voiceovers directly, you would want to use a microphone like this, but in a pinch in certain situations, doing the microphone on the camera is a nice feature to have, and I am very much glad that they included it. So what will I use the camera for going forward? I love using it for mousecast, and I will 1000% keep it on that. But I might experiment with different camera angles, for example, like this. I've sort of mounted it back by my PC, looking down at my desk. Obviously my mic boom arm here is in the way, but I can adjust this in the future to have different angles, to maybe have a different shot of a keyboard from like down low over here, or from like up high to the left, looking down at different aspects of a keyboard or a mouse pad even. Another thing to point out is now that I've been able to put this farther away from my setup, the image quality here looks much better, as again, it's just too high powered of a lens to be very close to your setup. We have a very color accurate representation of this 8K f1.2, for example. So I'll definitely experiment with this going forward at different angles, different mounting spots. I need to get a sort of larger boom arm and or tripod to set it up on. And my desk space is sort of restricted. Like for example, the side over here to the right of my desk is basically up against a wall. So it doesn't give me the best opportunity to set the camera up further back and do like a 2-3x zoom where it's still a crystal clear picture, but not like sort of pixelated like you saw earlier. But I think this here gives you a good representation of how high quality the image can be. Again, the lighting in my situation, not perfect, but it's much better than when I got the camera. I bought that additional backlight to give sort of a more overall illuminated look without hopefully oversaturating the picture too much. One more thing I wanted to cover here is the software, and you can't see the image here because OBS is sort of interfering with that, but you do have toggles between 50 and 60 hertz here, as well as you can enable HDR, but not at 60 FPS. I've played around with the saturation, brightness, and contrast levels to sort of make it look the best in my lighting environment. Beyond that, you can flip your horizontal and vertical. I had to flip the horizontal here to get it to look like my normal view. You can also switch between panorama and auto framing. Auto framing is what was sort of auto zooming on my face sometimes on mousecast, so I've turned that setting off, and I always ran with the autofocus enabled here. You can toggle the microphone on. I have it turned off when I'm using my dedicated microphone. Beyond that, obviously you can update your device, but these are the main settings that are available within the actual application itself. Not super in-depth, but enough to make the picture sort of look like you want it to look like. You can also do some zooming here in the app should the camera be showing up. I prefer to use the super convenient controller that we have though, as that is a great feature, and I'm glad that they included that. Coming back to my sort of like boardsy light camera angle, my main takeaways here for the VM20 are, it is a very expensive piece of equipment, but it is a much more professional piece of equipment as far as a camera focused solution goes. Specifically like the streaming, the Facecam, it's awesome for that. Absolutely love it. With the correct lighting and the correct sort of distance for like the videos that I shoot, it could also be, I believe, an upgrade on the iPhone as far as sort of raw natural image quality, giving you guys a very good idea for the color of the mouse that I'm reviewing, and also a very versatile camera that you can set up many of them. You can use it remotely from your PC. You get the controller controller as well, and that ever so powerful zoom that I was able to display a couple times throughout the video. Very pleased overall with the performance. The iPhone solution in opposition to this is an interesting one because iPhones obviously cost like $1,200 to $1,400, but we all sort of have like an iPhone or like an Android camera. I've not really tested an Android camera for sort of like webcam camera purposes, but that's like 4x the cost of this, where this is a dedicated camera. We all just happen to have phones. One more fun fact is I've been relieved to use this for Mousecast because that means I can have my phone in my hand and not hung up doing the recording. So if my son wakes up and my wife texts me, I'm able to go do that in time and not completely abandon her. So that's cool too. She loves that. Anyway, though, I think we're 2 for 2 here on high quality products from Nearstream. Very much enjoyed the AM30U. Had a great time with this VM20 camera and intend to continue doing so going forward. But with that being said, please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on X at Dasherzak. Check out the Mousecast podcast and my Peripheral Discord server. And with that, we'll see you.